Good afternoon. Chapel talks at Hill might be quite foreign for those who don't attend the weekly Monday and Friday gatherings. So I'm sure many of the parents here today are eager to discover what this Hill tradition is all about. Since the moment we first set foot on campus and attended our first chapels, I'm certain that every Hill student has visited this thought before. What would I give a chapel talk about? Whether or not that ends up being the case, this curiosity is inevitable. 2018, back when this building was still under renovation, third form gathered in the back of the CFTA, and I sat and listened to my first chapel talk. Ever since, I've debated what myself would talk about. The more I thought about it, however, the more I started to concern myself, not with the what, but with the how. How I would give a chapel talk. Nowadays, it's a rarity to find a large group like this one focused on just one person, on just one topic, listening to just one voice. Therefore, my question of concern changed from what to talk about to how I would talk at chapel. How to best utilize this short yet limited time of your unwavering attention. Back home in China, I sat in a classroom with about a dozen students more or less my age. There was a single question written on the board. What is the point of knowing what is happening in the world? A seemingly straightforward inquiry prompted multiple comments such as, I don't think there's a point, or the news is such a waste of time. Naturally, or so I thought in the moment, I realized that I myself never spent much proactive time, nor made much proactive effort to seek what is truly happening in the world. Later that week, from the responses of my peers and from my own hypocrisy, I began to understand that there is an evidently growing trend in younger generations, a declining interest in what is happening in the world. But what is the point of knowing what is happening in the world? Is there even a point? Is it a waste of time? Well, allow me to finally say that the question I was so fixated on before of how I would use my chapel talk time is by telling you a few stories. Story one, Xin. Xin was born in 1982. Raised by his mother, he and his brother led a normal life as they knew it. As Xin grew up, however, he noticed the unusualities in life. How the door to the room he lived in with his family was always locked. How he often felt hungry and never had enough for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Or how his mother would often tell him to stop saying certain things that he didn't think was wrong in any way. The year 1995, Xin turned 13. And on a particular day, he and his family were forcefully taken and separated into underground cellars. Under the accusation that his brother and his mother were trying to escape, Xin was hung by the ankles and tortured with fire. After hours of agony, he returned alone, had not and will not see his family ever again. 4 years after, he endured the visual pain of watching others around him starved, dehydrated, diseased to no avail, all while suffering the same fate himself. Xin's story didn't end until January 2nd, 2005. Story two, Chamrawayan. Chamrawayan, his mother Sareth, and his two siblings wake up early every morning. The family is located just outside Cambodia's capital, and the window to their rented apartment displays a view of a river. Chamrawayan puts on the same blue and red t-shirt he wears daily and awaits his mother's preparation for the day. This morning, he was unlucky. His mother hadn't collected enough money to feed him and his siblings more than dinner the night before. As a family of four stroll down the riverbank, rubbish and defecation swarm the streets. The polluted river, full of muddy sediment and plastic bottles, or the landfill, towered with abandoned cans, are their only source of income for the day. By lunch, Chamrawayan has ripped plenty of new holes in his shirt, gained plenty of new calluses on the soles of his feet, but gathered nowhere near plenty of plastic bottles or cans for his mother. And by midday, Sareth is counting up the money she earned from selling the garbage they acquired in the morning. There's enough to buy a hard-boiled egg. Chamrawayan's story didn't end until May 8th, 2016. Story three, Anthony. Kimberly was a mother to young Anthony, who spent his days not dissimilar from how we spent our own childhoods: school, TV, friends, toys, and vacation. When Anthony was 13, however, Kimberly discovered one night a small, swollen red bump in his leg. She procedurally washed it with hydrogen peroxide and kept an eye on it. What neither her nor Anthony could anticipate, however, was a tireless pain that only worsened over the coming months. From doctor to doctor, hospital to hospital, and ER to ER, his world was flipped upside down. Not long after, Kimberly and Anthony find out that he was one lucky 5 out of 100,000 people every year were diagnosed with reflex sympathetic dystrophy, better known as RSD. Even after diagnosis, there was no treatment to the pain, of which is now restrictive to his basic living. He lived like this for years, studying countless treatments before he barely came across an opportunity that could potentially cure his RSD. Anthony's story didn't end until June 6th, 2019. Story 4, Senga. 5-year-old Senga was living in the streets of Rwanda with his parents as a result of fleeing genocide. Here he met a man who promised him the security and pay of a job. Since birth, their family had known nothing but hungry days and sleepless nights. They weren't living, they were merely surviving. So the appeal of food and shelter in exchange for his labor was enticing enough for him to leave his family. This, however, was not the reality. While he was promised a working job, he instead was thrown into a battlefield, mindlessly risking his life against his will. He and countless other children, not even old enough to make their own conscious decisions, were manipulated into fighting for a rebel force, which treated them as disposable bodies. Every day, Senga was handed weapons of mass destruction, endured rudimentary military training in appalling conditions, and sent into battlefields, fighting fights that weren't his fights to fight. Eventually, after almost a decade as a child soldier, his surrender to the United Nations allowed for an escape. Senga's story didn't end until July 26th, 2021. It is appalling that nowadays, events must be of unimaginable scale for us to even hear about it. There must be deaths of dozens, or destruction of grand landmarks, or the outbreaks of global pandemics for us to pay attention to what is happening in the world. We've become obsessively invested in our own lives, what is happening to us, and not what is happening around us. We no longer care to go out of our way to think or to learn about what is happening in the world. It is as if we sit and wait for the news of the world to come to us, instead of actually going towards reading about the news in the world. But as we sit and wait, people like Shin, like Chamarayan, like Anthony, or like Senga are suffering undeserving fates while we go with our ignorant lives. Like in 2005, when 2-year-old I was boarding a plane to sleep comfortably in first-class seats next to my healthy and beaming brother, 23-year-old Shin Dong-hyuk was struggling to choose between eternal torture or a relieving suicidal death. Or in 2016, when I stood below Radio City Music Hall and discussed with my mother where next to explore in New York, Chamarayan Fan feasted on a singular boiled egg, feeling the fullest he had in weeks. In 2019, while I walked down my neighborhood street with my best friend to a local cafe, 13-year-old Anthony Moran sat in preparation for his 10th operation, maxed out on pain meds, yet still barely able to breathe through his pain. And finally, in 2021, as we banged spoons on the quad and ate strawberry shortcake on the pitch, Senga Jean Baptiste was shooting bullets as frequently as we eat in this dining hall and living in the midst of a physical and psychological abyss. As we sit and wait in peace, almost 99% of this type of news is not lucky enough to land on our TikTok, on our Instagram, or on the TV we occasionally walk by in the academic building, in our offices, or in the restaurants we eat at. While we blissfully enjoy our 3 meals a day with our happy and healthy families, the stories of these strong but hapless people's lives are never told to us, and therefore they go never known. We go on with our days, taking what may be a miracle in someone's agony for granted. Now, it is not to say that our happiness can't be celebrated because there are others who are suffering. There is ultimately a lot of good in our lives. Thus, it is hard to place the same level of value on everything. At some point, we are bound to take things for granted. The concern, however, lies more so in the fact that we can't even be bothered to recognize and appreciate those around us from time to time, for our blessings of safety, love, and peace ultimately come from them. It is hard to realize what you have until it's gone, but we can't begin to realize what we have if we don't understand and empathize with those who it is gone. So as I close my eyes and sit myself back in that classroom, I can't help but wonder how oblivious those students who are in that classroom are, how oblivious countless other students in countless other classrooms are, or how oblivious many of us in this very space are. Our generation, including myself, fallen prey to a bunch of falsely constructed priorities in life. Our high school reputations, our indulgences in materialistic items, our followings on social media. Every same breathing second that we spend complaining about not being able to buy a fifth pair of shoes, or missing out on a party because of schoolwork, or eating comfortable food under a comfortable roof in comfortable clothes, someone somewhere is experiencing discomfort of inhumane degrees. Today, after the past 3 years I spent sitting in weekly chapels, how I ultimately chose to spend my time here, a time when all of you have no other alternative choice except to spend your time and attention on me, was to be a mouthpiece to some things that are happening in the world. As I read you the stories of 4 determined, powerful, and unluckily unfortunate human beings, I hope their journeys through struggle will spark a light that will be a spark that lights a sense of urgency in you all to know what is happening in the world. I hope you will all be motivated to discover more about how many others who are on our same earth are living their lives and surviving hardships that we are fortunate enough to say we may never have to endure. Shin, Chamaran, Anthony, and Senga are merely 4 individuals in a sea of thousands of others who suffer tragedy almost all of us could never even imagine. If we abandon our tendencies to be ignorant and begin to actively seek what is happening in the world, we may begin to understand that there are too many Shins, too many Chamarans, too many Anthonys, and too many Sengas who go silent and who go unnoticed. So, when you have a chance, take a moment, sit in your classrooms, and ponder the same question that was presented to me. While I sat in my classroom, on the board was written, "What is the point of knowing what is happening in the world?" Because only once we understand those around us can we appreciate the privileges that we have within us. So let us not live in the dark, and let us not live in oblivion. Know what is happening in your world and what is happening to those who you share. Thank you.